Here we got Michael Reid to the Master Series. I'm glad that we have you here to talk to you today about your career, your past, present, and also just things that you are possibly looking to do in the future. We want this to be a space for you to tell us about yourself. Also spread some inspiration to people in the future too, the youth as well. They need to hear these type of stories. So to give them encouragement, to tell them that they got to persevere and be persistent upon their goals that they want to do going forward in their lives.
I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, St. Jude Hospital, 1964. As my mom would say, everybody in Montgomery who was Black was born in St. Jude Hospital because that was the only hospital you could really be born at. But I spent the majority of my young life in Albany, Georgia, and actually grew up in Albany, but I also spent many, many summers and a lot of time in Montgomery, Alabama, as that was very customary in the Black community at that particular point in time, spend a lot of time with your relatives. So good Southern fella, raised Albany, Georgia, spent a lot of time in Montgomery, but definitely claim Albany.
That's what's up. Let me ask you, man, growing up, what was one of the dishes that your parents cooked for you that you enjoyed, that you thinking about, reminiscing about? What was that dish that you
I see that's interesting because if you go back to my youngest memories are of my not nurse, but my babysitter. Okay. And Miss Williams, you have to realize what time of this frame it is. So this is the civil rights motion and movement. And I was blessed to get an extreme amount of love and care from the people who were raising me in a very difficult time in America. And so Miss Williams had always worked for white people because that was the way that went. And so I was the first one of the first few people that she ever kept who were Black.
Yeah.
And so the amount of love that she poured into me, was just incredible. And so she used to always make oatmeal for me with a little butter and a little sugar. And although I was really young, never, ever forgotten that. Now, when we talk about primary, like what's the favorite thing, nobody in the world makes a better sweet potato pie than my grandmother did. And that's not me talking about that. If you ask any of my other relatives, and we've been all over the world, I got one of my cousins I'm real close to is a West Point grad, and we've been everywhere. We will all tell you the same thing. No one makes a better sweet potato pie than Mabel Ferris.
I agree with you, man. That's like me. That's like me. My grandma, God rest her dead, ain't nobody made a great sweet potato pie just like her. My dad always asked, man, every sometimes she lived with us. She was like, man, you can make us some sweet potato pie. She would cook like 4 of them. And then one of the pies on the counter is done after the night. My dad sit there and got 4 slices. I got to go in there and grab one too.
What I was gonna say is that I know why it was so good now. Now, no question, my grandmother was a very good cook, but obviously her best, most secret ingredient was the love and the care that she put into it. People can say what they want to. I know that changes the food. But then I also get older and I realized just how many eggs, how much butter, how much sugar was in it. You couldn't help. You were on a sugar high. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
That's what's up, man. Now, Mike, let's start by delving into your early success. Can you share some key achievements and what motivates you during those formative years?
Like I said, for me, some people have very difficult stories, and my world was obviously not a silver spoon type world. That's based upon where we're at and the economic stuff like that. But one of the things that I did have was I had the support of my family and the community, and I had a tremendous amount of love poured into me. I also, I guess, tested fairly well when I was little, so was known from an IQ standpoint that the IQ was pretty good. My parents are both educators. My family, as a tradition, most of them are educators. From a historical standpoint, I'm the 3rd generation to go to college. Okay, which you got to think about, where I'm at. My college roommate was the first person in his class, first person in his family to ever go to college. So there was a certain blessing in terms of education, information, love, and the understanding that, you can be what you want to be, but you got to do the work. So that was kind of how I was raised. Be moral in what you're doing, try to make the best decisions, treat people the best way that you possibly can. And then more importantly than people saying things, it was the example by which those people live that I follow. And then the other thing that I got was, as I was growing up in the community, there was always the older next generation who was reaching out, said, "Hey, man, you're going to be all right. Come on over here, play with me. Don't do that. Do this, do it." And to this day, like Nick is an example of that, the person who's one little iteration ahead of me who reaches back and says, "Hey, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, do this," and so forth. And so I had a lot of that in my life. So I had a lot of work that I had to do myself, but I had a lot of people pulling for me.
That's good. That's really good. Every journey is marked with a pivotal moments and challenges. Now, could you share some of those moments and challenges that you faced early?
If we go back to let's just say high school. So I'm a pretty good athlete in high school. I'm a 3-sport guy, a 3-letterman person, and so forth. Yes. Football, basketball, and track. I will not sit here and make any stories about my track. Whatever. I was okay with track because they made me run. But my basketball, I was a pretty good basketball player, and then as a football player, I played out of position. So the year that I was a senior, the sportcasters and so forth in the area, as many other people, felt that there were no D1 athletes in Albany, Georgia, whereas the year before there had been tons of them. And I just refused to believe that because I thought that I was a D1 athlete. Now, the problem for me was I was playing out of position. I played tight end when we were running, and split end when we passed, and I ran back punts, and I ran back kickoffs. Okay, so I was, a pretty good athlete, but I didn't play one down of defense in high school. But my size at that point in time is I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, or 195. So I am linebacker proportions to be a D1 player at that point in time, and so forth. But as a tight end, I'm way too small. And as a wideout, I'm not as fast. So I had to find someone who was willing to take, at the D1 level, a gamble on an athlete that he'd be okay. And that was a little hairy, but I never ever believed that I couldn't do it. And then when I got to Wisconsin, I showed up with a pretty good chip on my shoulder that I was determined to sell that the fellow from South Georgia, because Larry Sperling, who you might hear Nick talk about as the captain up at Wisconsin, came from my high school and had always been the guy who I always emulated. And then Gary Ellison was the player of the year in the state of Georgia the year before, and he went up as a wideout, and he wound up playing running back for us in Wisconsin. So there was a tradition from my town of being pretty successful, and I was not about to let that down, or let down the people who had raised me. So that was probably the biggest thing, was just having the belief in myself that I could do something when a lot of people were saying that I could.
I respect that. And how was it with that transition going from being an offensive player to a defensive player? Was it seamless? It takes some time.
I played offense with a defensive mentality, right? You got to understand that. I mean, the era that I played in is not this current era. So we could blow someone up until the whistle blew, right? So you could. My thing when I was playing was like, you're going to try to hit me when I try to catch a ball, or if I run a reverse or whatever, and I know that. But you need to know that I'm hunting you all game long. So when you turn your head, these weren't considered cheap shots at this point in time. This is just playing till the whistles blow. I would drive your butt all the way to the bench. Then I help you up. But it was going to go on all night. So when I got to Wisconsin and they said, okay, we're going to play linebacker, I probably hadn't played linebacker since middle school, right, or junior high school for us. I was like, cool. That's good. I get to hit somebody. And that was one of the things that happened to me at Wisconsin, is like, they didn't know what they were going to do with me. So I show up and, I'm a second all-region, tight end from South Georgia, and everybody else is All-American this, All-American that. People, no one even knows what I'm playing. Okay, matter of fact, I didn't know what I was playing. I started out at outside linebacker, and then they had just drafted, or just brought in, that's the wrong word. They just recruited 2 kids from Madison, Wisconsin, who both also went to the NFL, Rick Graff and Tim Jordan. And they kind of had identified them as being their outside linebackers, for the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. And then I got in there and started running around. They like, well, we need to get him out of here because this could mess up our plan a little bit possibly. So they moved me to safety. So now I'm playing safety. Okay. And fun playing safety. That was kind of cool. But my big thing at safety was, I could cover a pass a little bit, but when it came time to play run support, that was my world. So I got moved to inside linebacker because we had a big fullback named Snook Green. Nick can tell you all about him. But Snook was about 280. And I think I was lining up on the hash, and I must have been, 12, 15 years off the ball. I don't think I backpedaled more than half a step. I just broke into a full speed run, and I blew him up in the hole, right? Once again, I'm 200 pounds. Snook is 280. People look at me like I've lost my mind, but I'm a South Georgian, and yeah, I'm going to show y'all what I can do. So that worked out for me because my mentality fit that. And having been a basketball player, playing guard for all those years, learning how to shuffle, move your feet, cover people out the backfield, stuff like that, that was a very natural thing for me to do. So it was a great transition for me in terms of that right there.
Okay. I know on the football field, you formed a lot of brotherhoods. You know, you had a lot of friends that you formed, a lot of friendships that you formed. Now, one pivotal role, one person that you speak of as a mentor, Nick Savage, you know, we've heard of your connection. Now, can you tell us possibly what was the significance of that relationship that you formed with him? Someone that I was with.
That relationship was huge for me. One, I've always been a pretty good academic student, as that's something my parents indicated. My dad's a physics teacher and a football coach, played in the NFL himself, and my mother was a librarian. So, like I said, the educational portion was huge. So when I showed up in Wisconsin, I didn't really know if I would be a professional football player or anything like that. That wasn't my thing. I just wanted to play football and get an education. And I knew that that would mean, you know, having a quality degree in something that, you know, would be pertinent to me that I also would enjoy. So, of course, I picked the challenge. I said, I want to be a computer science major. Nick Savage was the only computer science major on that football team when I got there. In fact, Nick would technically have been, you know, about to graduate at the GA, and I would have been coming in. So there was no computer science majors on the football team. And people were like, well, why don't you do business this or that right there? I said, no, I'll be a computer science major. So Nick sat me down, kind of told me the ropes about that, also educated me a lot about, you know, what it means to play in the Big Ten and how you deal with certain aspects. What does it mean to be a Black athlete, for instance, playing in the Big Ten? How to deal with it. He's coming from Baltimore. I'm coming from South Georgia. We're in an environment that's totally different than either one of us grew up in. So he helped me with all those things. And then he also later helped me down the road when it was time to look for internships. So, you know, he helped me get an internship down at Boca Raton in Florida. So I worked for IBM down there. I worked for IBM in Boca Raton, Florida, Madison, Wisconsin, which I'm certain he helped with that. And then he says he didn't do anything in Atlanta, but he probably made a phone call for me too. And I worked down here in Atlanta a couple of times. And that's where I thought my career was going to go. And then I decided later on that, you know, I wanted to be a martial artist, which allowed me to be allowed me to be an athlete and a coach, and also, you know, continue to pursue that as opposed to sitting in the office. That lost its taste for me. So Nick's been a pivotal point in a person in my life because he was a thinker, but he also was a doer and a great athlete and a great friend.
Okay. You speak of those two different sports you played. One of them you succeeded on a high level at, which is football. You went from Wisconsin. What was that journey that you took to becoming an NFL professional player, you know, from Wisconsin to the NFL?
I mean, you're playing in the Big Ten, so you're playing against great competition and so forth. So that wasn't as big a deal. I mean, I actually played in the first NFL game I ever saw, you know, in person. So I was drafted in the 7th round. If I had probably spent more time training for the combine like everyone does these days, where you go off to a camp and you get in, I probably would have gotten drafted in the 3rd or 4th round. It's my guess, because I didn't test as well. I played really well, but I didn't test as well as some of the coaches would have liked for me to coach. But that also meant that I wound up in the right situation. So when I got drafted by the Falcons, at that point in time, the defense they played was a thinking linebackers defense. So you had to be able to look in the backfield, make lots of chases, and blah, blah, blah. And so that was right up my alley. So that actually helped me by being drafted in the 7th round, as opposed to maybe winding up someplace else and playing a different scheme. Later on, when Jerry Glanville came and they changed the scheme, and they, for the first time in my life since, you know, I could ever remember, they had me playing attack defense, you know, because everything else had been read and react and think about this, that, and the other. That actually was pretty cool too. And I actually excelled in that, because that was like disco play, you know, and I really liked that right there. So the biggest thing was by playing in the Big Ten, there was no fear of size. You know, I mean, what people don't know is I played the majority of my time in the Big Ten as an inside linebacker over the guard between 205 and 212. I didn't move up to like 218 and 224 until my last 2 years. So I was just too stupid to know that I wasn't supposed to be there. You know, that 300 and something pound guy is really supposed to block me, but I just didn't think he was supposed to block me. So having seen that great size, having seen that athleticism, having played against great athletes, going to the NFL was just adjusting to the speed of the game and then using my mind. My advantage for me wasn't that I ran faster than someone else. I mean, obviously you don't get to the NFL if you're not a good athlete. But I know the first round draft pick looks like, right? That's it's a man upon beast and this, that, and the other. I could run and I could hit and I could do those type of things, but I wasn't going to be declared a first round draft pick. But what I could do is I could think, and I could eliminate many plays before they ever got there, because I could look at the formation, I could look at the set, I could look at the personnel, and now I'm only reacting to what, 2 or 3 things as opposed to reacting to 15. So my reactions can be on point, quicker, faster, and I'm going to be in the right place, and my teammates can count on me. So that was my advantage to making the NFL roster. And then the next thing was being in the right system that was good for, the attributes that I had.
Now, I want to ask 2 questions pertaining to your time playing the NFL. Now, first question would be, what is your favorite game that you played in? And then the second question would be, what is your favorite play, the play that you made? Playmaker.
Favorite game. You know what? The team that I used to enjoy playing against the most was the Saints, because I played in Atlanta. That's the natural rivalry. And I had some friends who played for the Saints. And so it was a very, it was an intense rivalry. The players actually do like each other, but didn't like each other in the game, because that's just how that went. The game that's probably the most memorable game was playing against San Francisco. I played every snap of defense. I played every special team. I started that game. I think I had 2 sacks of Joe Montana that game. I made a lot of plays. After the game, Ronnie Lott walks over to me and high-fived. He goes, "Man, that's one of the best games I've seen someone play." Which, I knew the fact that Ronnie Lott had talked to me was like, man, that's pretty cool right there. So that was probably the game that I enjoyed the most. In terms of the favorite play, can't really think of a favorite play, because I'm not playing offense, right? I'm playing defense. It's not so much, and if you're playing outside, you're playing over the tight end, or you're going to rush the passer or something like that right there. So I can't give you a favorite play. If I was an offensive player, I could probably go back and do that. I can give you favorite plays as being a high school offensive player, but college and pro defense is blow them up.
Trust me, I understand. I think I've seen a play of you. Was it that you sacked Steve Young, or was it Joe Montana that you sacked?
Probably Joe Montana.
Joe Montana.
Joe, I think I've got a couple of pictures of me out there doing that. In fact, there's a picture of me in Sports Illustrated with Joe. I got Joe's head like twisted over to the side, and some other stuff. I forgot what year that was, but that was then. It was a good space to be in. It was enjoyable to play. Obviously, I may have gotten a couple of sacks on Joe, but they got way more rings than we got.
Hey, that type of play that you made, it wouldn't be legal today in the NFL.
Well, there's a lot of plays. There's a lot of plays that a lot of players made that would not be legal in today's game. Right. Let's just put it like, before my phone is blowing up back here, but we'll work through it.
That's totally fine. And now you also speak of martial arts. What was the different techniques and training sessions that you ran?
So martial arts. I've always had a love for martial arts. So if you go back to what are my childhood dreams were probably to be an NFL player and to be a Shaolin Kung Fu master. And that's based off of growing up watching, can't think of the guy's name right now. Kung Fu was the series with David Carradine. Growing up and watching his relationship between Master Po and Grasshopper. And the fighting, I always tell people, was really cool, right? He had the hand on the back of the uniform and that type of stuff like that. But the thing that I was drawn to, even at an early age, wasn't so much the fighting. I liked the training. I liked the discipline. But what I really loved was that the old Grasshopper, when he got old, was in America, and he was putting together all these lessons that he had been taught by his instructor many years ago and using them. And I found that to be invaluable. The idea of studying something that empowers you, that makes you a better person, and then those life lessons can be utilized to be successful on the other side of the world. Okay. Oftentimes he had to also fight, because that was the nature of the show, but he was always trying to solve his problems without hitting someone in the head, which to me is what being a great martial artist is supposed to be anyway. You should be able to solve your problems without putting your hands on anyone, if at all possible. Okay, but if you have to, then you have the capability of doing that. So big difference between being a fighter and being a martial artist. A martial artist should be a pretty good fighter, but he needs to be a really good person. Fighter just needs to be able to fight. And then if he's a good person, that's a plus.
That mentality, right? Being a martial artist. So
exactly.
You was learning about building a growth mindset, You learned how to discipline yourself, with the different things that you were learning. So speaking on like a growth mindset, going into your present time careers, can you
Mhm.
talk about your current ventures, achievements that brought you to where you are today with this new growth
Well,
mindset that you've learned throughout your career?
no, that I mean, that growth mindset was placed into me when I was really small.
Mm.
Okay, I'm not gonna. I I it still has to come from me, but that fan was stirred. You know what I'm saying? They used to say that it takes a village to raise a child. It was stirred by the village. It was stirred by my family. It was stirred that you can be accomplished on anything you want, but you have to do the work. There's a genuine interest to grow and to learn. That's one of the reasons why I took on martial arts as a full-time career after I got done playing football, as opposed to going into the workforce. Because here I remained a student. I remained in growth mode. And along the way, I opened my own business. I have people train up under me. I mentor people up under me. I grow as a martial artist. I meet other martial artists. I travel around the world. I learn lessons and so forth. Even right now today, this week, I'm in a 12-week consciousness workshop, learning more and more about the brain and how things work and how consciousness works and how we grow. And so I'm a lifelong student. And that to me is the most important thing. For me, the biggest, most important change as a martial artist over time is moving from the idea of just being a fighter. Like right now, I would tell you, I think I can still defend myself fairly well. Okay. And that's a good thing. But the traditional movement is going to go from fighter to healer to spiritual leader. Okay. That's the traditional progression of a martial artist that people don't talk about. And so right now, I've gone from being a person who owned his own job to a person who now actually has a business in which he employs other people, and he's making opportunities for them inside that company while also looking to grow the company itself to whether we decide whether we want to expand to additional locations, or do we want to go into business doing other things. So that's my primary focus of what has been going on. Some other things I've dibbled and dabbled in, but the martial arts industry, the mentor business, the coaching, business, the helping college athletes, high school athletes become college athletes and provide anything. My daughter was a D1 volleyball player, and so I helped a lot of kids shoot their videos and talk to other colleges and schools and so forth. As people have come out of high school and they want to know something about recruiting, I make phone calls for, try to help out and so forth. So there's a lot of mentorship that takes place. One of my greatest accomplishments as a teacher is one of the guys that made all the Apple commercials that you guys saw a few years ago was my youngest teacher. Okay. At 14 years of age, he was teaching adults at my martial arts school, and people thought he was like 17 or 18 because he was very mature. And he did the work, right? But I know that foundation that he got from structure and from being able to address and talk to people helped him along the way. So it's one of my proudest moments is watching him do what he did in the professional space. And I'm like, man, that's just awesome. Because as a teacher, what's your reward? Your reward is normally not a financial reward. Your reward is seeing the people that you poured into, and I always say, learn to teach themselves. Because at the end of the day, no one teaches you anything. A good teacher provides instruction, provides mentorship, so you can figure it out for yourself. And then you go, oh, you helped me get there. But at the end of the day, you teach yourself. So, that to me is the most important thing, is that lifelong path of developing and then sharing what you've been taught. Okay. I opened a martial arts school in 1993 specifically to find the truth. And when I said that, my quest was not just the truth about this style that I study, but what's the truth, period. And so I've been on that pursuit since 1993 as a professional. I started studying martial arts in '88. So I've been on that path a long time, and I'm still growing, still developing, still meeting lifetime acquaintances. And then now also hopefully giving back to people so that they can then benefit from the information and knowledge. Because think about it, if a person is I'm not calling myself a sage, but if you're on the mentorship aspect of this, what good is it if you can't share that? Right? If you can't share it, you can't uplift anyone, you can't move them forward, then you just got a personal quest. That's okay too. but it's a lot better when you can go back and you can help people along that path. And then if they're smart, they actually can learn from the mistakes that you and others have made. If not, they get to make those mistakes and go, that's what they were talking about.
I do respect that. So what was one of those big heroes and inspirations that, that truly hammered that into you, instilled that nice wisdom into your mind?
I have to always start with my family first, because my grandparents and my parents were master teachers. They're the first people who showed me different things. I had a coach in 8th grade whose name was Coach Allen. He's passed on and moved out of this realm at this particular point in time, but he made a tremendous impact on my life because of how he talked to me, right? How he communicated with me. He pulled me aside and says, Mike, I think you might be fortunate enough maybe one day to play for a state championship. Let me tell you about this. This is what happens. And he goes, you know what? You're probably going to be a pretty good player. Never take a shot to play the game, and no matter what else happens around you, think about being out on the South Georgia Lake at 6:00 in the morning and casting out, and how peaceful and serene. Is there anything greater than that? Now, I'm not saying that, I lived a peaceful, serene life, did nothing, blah, 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 but I'm saying that how he painted life, how he taught me what was important, how he encouraged me to be the best person that I could be, and then utilize my athletics along with my mind, has never left me. And so that's one person who I always, there's plenty of other coaches in my life that have been good, but Coach Allen is someone at that pivotal moment in time, because in 8th grade, in 9th grade, that was not considered, that was high school, but it was junior high school for us. So we were still at the middle school or the junior high school before we went over to the high school the next year. And so that's a pivotal moment in time for me. When someone sits down, takes the time, talks about what you can be, gives me his experiences, and then helps to mold an idea of don't be a knucklehead, right? He never quite said that, but that's what he was saying, is don't be a knucklehead. You have a future in front of you. Do things the right way, treat people the right way, be you, and you'll be okay. And when you're in 8th grade, 9th grade, that's a pretty powerful message when someone tells that to you who you respect. So I've never ever forgotten that. I'll never forget Coach Allen. He definitely made a difference in my life. And I only played for him 1 year. I knew him for 3, but I only played for him for 1 year. So he made a tremendous impact upon my life.
That's a really good story right there. You tell me. Just some closing thoughts right now. Now, I really appreciate this interview that we're having. You telling me about your journey that you've had. Now, just advice, for those who are aspiring to achieve their own success stories. What advice do you give them based on your experience and lessons you have learned?
First thing I think I would say to anyone is, evaluate how important it is to you to do what you want to do. The reason why is no one's going to do your work for you. No one. Okay. So the only person who can get up every day, especially we talk about the realm of athletics, the only person who's going to get up every day and lift the weights and do the running is you. I had this conversation with my daughter before she went off to school. I said, look, many people go to college, but I don't know their story. I said, I know the story of a college athlete. And I said, you're going to wind up being a college athlete, and those people who you meet are probably going to be your friends the rest of your life. And it's a tough gig, right? You got to get up in the morning, you got to lift weights, you got to do all this other stuff. Plus you got to go be a student, and then you got to have a social life, right? My point is that it doesn't matter what the endeavor is. If you feel like you can do something, then you have to be committed enough to take all the necessary steps to give yourself the best opportunity to make it come true. There's still no guarantee that it'll come true. You don't know, right? What if you're the second best player in whatever sport in the country, and the best player plays in front of you? Okay, so Steve Young and Joe Montana, right? I played against. We were trying to keep Steve Young on the bench because you knew he was going to run around. Joe was going to kill you, but you at least knew where he was going to be, right? So my point is that you have to have belief in yourself. If everything starts with belief in yourself and the understanding and the making the decision that you are going to accomplish something. So I can't think of many things in my life that once I committed fully to do it, that I didn't accomplish. I can think of a number of things that didn't work out that I have committed to, right? So that's my big thing is search who you are, make a decision about what you want to accomplish, and then pour yourself into it, all right? And if you do that, your odds of success are really, really high, okay? Also, if you can find that in an area, an arena in which you have passion, okay, that you're passionate about, then it'll make it also easier because then it's not what? It's not work. So I went to work for 20 years running my own business when in fact it was really my own what? Job. And it's only in the last 5-7 years that I became a business person who then started to go, okay, well, the business needs to be bigger than me, bigger than my work and aspirations and so forth. I need other people to help me grow this vision forward of what we need to do. So my mindset had to change. But we could have never got to this point if I didn't believe that I do all the things I was supposed to do. So my point is real simple. Have a belief in yourself of what it is you want to accomplish. Understand to some degree what it takes to do that. And then don't let, when things go wrong, that you decide that you're just going to bail out. I mean, that's the biggest thing I see right now when I talk to particularly younger people, is that if it doesn't all go right away, we just want to switch. You know, sometimes you gotta work your way through. You know, you got to grind through some things. You just can't just, you know, say, hey, my cell phone popped in. Hey, here's the answer. You have to grind it out. So if you have that persistence, because that's what I've lived off of, a belief in myself and a persistence and a passion that I could accomplish whatever I wanted to accomplish, which is what all of those people who were master instructors poured into me.
That's right.
So I'm representative of them, right? So because they poured that into me, that's what I try to pour back into other people, and that's what I try to tell them is that this is how you go about doing this, right? But you have to do the work. You have to persist. You have to overcome when you have an injury. You have to overcome when your grades aren't right. You have to overcome some stupidity that you do. You have to overcome when someone tells you that you're not good enough. When someone goes in front of you who maybe or maybe shouldn't be playing in front of you. These days, you just quit and leave school. You know, I think if you ask Nick, if they had a portal for us back in the day, you know, I don't think anybody would have stayed. We'd all been someplace else, right? But that wasn't the option. The option at that point in time was get where you're at, and your parents pretty much said to you, what? You're not coming home. Stick it out. You're there. Get your education, get your degree, fight your way through all these things, and you'll be a better man for it in the end. Now, I'm not saying that's always the best solution, but there's something to be said about that persistence over time that brings you to a goal. I have great respect for Nick Savage and like Larry Spurgeon, Aquana, as he would call him. I would call him Marblehead, but that's another story. In that they went to Wisconsin when there were very few brothers up there, right? They had to fight through all types of stuff. And because they persevered, there was a much better environment, you know what I'm saying? And when we now talk to the younger kids who are there, we look at the facilities and the things they have and we smile and we go, that must be nice, right? But you know, the same thing applies. You want to leave something better than when you arrive. And so that's kind of what I would tell anyone. When you persist and do all this stuff, then reach back and bring somebody else along, you know, so that you can be the next part of that equation, the mentor part of that equation that allows everyone to keep evolving, which also allows you to evolve. So I think I'll stop at that right there. That's probably enough.
Respect that, man. We got to pin that statement that you said right there. That for the audience out there, you know, he's dropping a lot of good gems for you guys to pick up on, you know. And you reach the end of this interview, this is some information, some valuable information that he's given us to learn from. And I will definitely take that into account too as well, man. So I appreciate you, Michael Reid, for taking the time out and speaking to us and being a guest here on a Master Series with Savage Fleck. I really do appreciate you, man. You really have a good story right there for yourself. Keep it up, man. Like, you really do. You really are inspiring the youth. You're inspiring the people that you're working with. And I see through your story that you have that tenacity, that tenacious spirit of yours to move forward, to persevere through your life. And you going, you grinding. I see right behind you. That's your personality, man. Your personality is literally right behind you, man. You got a great spirit. I do appreciate your time, man. Do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Terima kasih, aloha, one love.